Good afternoon or good morning, depending which coast you're on or in between. This is Zach Zaharowitz, head of the lighting group here at the Lighting Quotient, with our head of product and development. And we're here today to present our new product, the Elliptipar Style 144. Before we get started, first, hover your mouse near the top of your screen. You should get a Zoom Meetings drop-down. And one of the selections you can make is Q&A. And if you utilize that, you'll get a text box where you can enter questions. And what we'll try and do at the end of the half hour, time permitting, is try and address some of those questions. So feel free during the presentation, if you think of something, type it in there and make use of that. Secondly, after this initial introduction, we're actually going to shut our video off so you won't be seeing us, just to improve the quality of the transmission of the main PowerPoint show. So with that, I'll turn things over to Paul.
Okay. All right, thanks, Zach. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the video for now, but we'll turn it back on at the end, and we'll show you some of the products in person. So today I'd like to introduce the new Elliptipar linear LED S144. Our ever-expanding LED product line continues to grow, and now we're introducing the new linear S144. It's an LED version of what you probably are familiar with, the F144 linear. There's a few different changes or improvements to the product. Now that it is an LED product, obviously you have light engines and drivers instead of lamps and ballast. But one of the improvements that we did make was a hinged lens rather than a lens that kind of lift and shift out. But also we changed so that it's the baffle product with or without a baffle, and the baffle after the fact in the field if you decided that you need it. So what we're looking at here is the sell sheet. It's a two-page sell. It's available on the website now. All of the information we're going to share with you today is available, and we'll show you how to access it on the website. So the back of the sell sheet is where you have all your information, the features and benefits with the product, as well as thumbnail candle power curves. That represents a 3-foot unit, 500. If you take a closer look at the cross section through the fixture, you can see we have a beam shaping lens that gathers the light from a linear array of mid-power LEDs and transforms it into an asymmetric distribution. We have a constant current driver. They're all universal voltage, 120 through 277. We also have option 47 as well. There's several dimming options, which I'll get to in a moment. We have an impact-resistant outer lens, which also has a diffusion film to make a nice, clean, uniform appearance on the lens. So as I mentioned before, the lens is hinged, so it can swing open to access the lens or the light engine if you ever needed to replace or upgrade the light engine. And there's also a hinge on the housing itself. Screw and the housing hinges open, so you have hands-free to do the wiring and change the driver if you ever need to change a driver. Also on the website, you can access a list of benefits which go through the different lengths, some of the uses, some of the features of the drivers, dimming, what's available for color temperature, CRI, so that's all accessible on the web. The catalog page is similar to what you've seen. It's a two-page data sheet with line drawings, dimensions. It shows just kind of a brief overview for surface mounting. We have specifications, thumbnail of the candle power curve, and as well as some features. On the back side is all of the specification information on how to order the product, and I'll take you through each one of these. The product is available in 2-foot through 9-foot lengths, and we offer it standard in 2 drive currents, 350 milliamp or 700, and you can see this data for the wattage and the lumens is based on 3500K 80 CRI. So with the other color temperatures, you can have you will have different lumen. The wattage will be the same, but you'll see that there is a hyperlink here where you can access a performance table. It's a 2-page table which goes through all the different lengths and all the color temperatures, and as well as the 2 different drive currents. So you can see the range of light output for a 2-foot unit at 350 milliamp, 2700 K is going to be, 1143 lumens, all the way up to a 9-footer, which is over 11,000 lumens at 4000 K70. So there's a wide variety of lumen packages. Moving on to the mounting, there's a surface, the S mounting code, which is just for ceiling mounting directly to the surface. Conduit entries on the top to bring direct feed. The X mount is for use with this is a detail of the S mount, just showing the mounting plate attaching to the ceiling and how you can swing the fixture open to access the wiring and then closing it. The X mount will be used with the cantilever accessory, pendant, or cable support, which are ordered separately. We offer 2 finish codes, a semi-gloss white and a matte white. The matte white might be more appropriate on a sheetrock ceiling that's painted matte white. It tends to sort of disappear when it's surface mounted. We also offer finishes, the RAL colors, or if you have a sample chip, you can send it in to us and we'll get it computer matched for our powder coat system. Color is available. It's been changed for a 1 and a 2 voltage code for 120, 277, and T and V for dimming. Since all the drivers are now universal voltage, we offer an 8 for 120 through 277 and an N 120 through 277 for dimming. We will be adding codes for 340 soon. Under this area, you'll see MA 1303, which if you click on it, it will open a document that is all the driver information. So it gives you the drivers, what compatible controls are used with them, the remote distances, minimum starting temperature, and if you want to actually open a spec sheet, you can, on a hyperlink, it will open. This is an example of a universal lighting technology driver. So there's many options and hyperlinks that go to compatible controls. So there's a lot of useful information on this. Next, options, as I mentioned before, all the fixtures come with a clear lens, but you can have a combination of a clear lens and a baffle. So if you have long sight lines or sight lines down a hallway where you want to minimize views into the fixture, we offer the baffle. We also have the LK option, which is for when you have long rows that are mounted end to end. The LK is a option for pre-wired modular harness with gen, so you can feed the first fixture and then just build the row from there. And then the LC is actually a combination of the baffle plus the pre-wired modular harness. LM is for MRI units. In this case, the drivers have to be remote mounted outside of the MRI suite. So that involves a little bit more information. So it's always best to consult the factory before specifying that, because each fixture, or each driver, I should say, each driver's output has to go through a MRI filter, which can get expensive. So we have ways of minimizing the number of filters. The next option is color temperature. We offer 2700, 3000, 3500, and 4000 in 80 CRI. That's what we are cataloging today. If you have a need for 90 CRI, we can get that, and there are minimum runs that we have to do to get the boards, but they're usually, because so many are used in a linear run, that it's usually not that big of a deal that we can get special color temperatures or higher or lower CRI is available upon request. The dimming options are laid out here with the 00 would be non-dimming, but TE is the GE 2-watt, so it works off a standard trailing edge, reverse phase, ELV dimming control. Dims down to about 10%. The ZX is a 0 to 10 analog dimming, which dims down to about 5%, and it works off of standard 0 to 10 volt controls. The L3 are Lutron dimming options. The L3 is for the ecosystem, and the LH is for the standard three-wire, Lutron three-wire dimmed hot controls. We also have two Elder LED options. Elder LED EL is for 0 to 10 controls, and ED is for dolly controls. What's nice about the Elder LED is that it dims, it basically is dark, so it's standby mode when it's fully dimmed. The other thing I should mention is, as far as the drive current, many of these drivers are actually, even though we only catalog a 350 and 700 as our standard, you can get, we can program it to a specific drive current, which will result in maybe you need to hit a watts per square foot target, an luminance target. So that is available. Don't be afraid to ask for that. We can easily get the drivers. We can program them here to pretty much any drive current. The hangers are, as I mentioned before, with cantilever pendants and cable supports. Just note that they are different than the S144 fluorescent. They're slightly different, so they do have different ordering codes. And the other accessories are the decorative end plates. So on a continuous run, you really only need one set of end plates, because in between fixtures, you don't use the decorative end plates. We also offer a hanger bar kit for accessible ceilings or T-bar ceilings. And then this is the accessory for MRI filters, which I mentioned before. So each output on every driver would have to go through one of these drivers. So it is best to consult factory before you specify that. I'm going to let Zach take you through the website where you can find most of the
highlight where things are at, and some of these you've already seen in previous slides, but just to link it. This page view is if you went and clicked the products button and then selected the quick finder. So by entering the 4-digit style code, you'd be presented with a page like this. And the top choice at the right is the data sheet, which is that black and white cut sheet that Paul already illustrated when he highlighted some of the selections you can make. Underneath that, you'll see listed the product fact sheets, and probably the most prominent item there is the color cell sheet, which is listed at the top. So again, you've seen this, but just to show you where it resides on the website, that's how you'd link to it. You'll see the skilled performance table. That's also available as just a direct hyperlink from the cut sheet, but somebody coming into this particular part of the site can find it. There's the lighting facts label, and at the bottom, there's also a selection for the TM30 color data. If any of you sat in on any of the webinars DOE or others may have hosted on the subject, TM30 isn't, in a sense, officially adopted by the universe yet, but IES did put it out there seeking reaction from a variety of parties. You have CIE issuing a statement saying they will review this, that they see that it offers some benefits, but they haven't officially endorsed it yet, nor have other groups. So it still remains to be seen where this goes in the future, but nevertheless, we've been surprised in a short period of time the uptake and the number of questions we've had from people saying, can you illustrate the data in this format? So if you select that on under this product facts guide, there's a 7-page PDF available for each of the color temperature and CRI combinations. There are two formats. We've combined them into one. So some of the information is actually repetitive. Unfortunately, the spreadsheet that generates this, there are some nice features of the one presentation, some nice features of the other. We literally combine them into one PDF. What you're seeing here on the first page is your typical spectral irradiance diagram. They're taking all the test colors and boiling it down into a simplified diagram here. And this information kind of relates to this bullseye diagram. Just to speak, and what it's trying to show is if you see the color creeping outside of this white circular line, that's telling you you're seeing that color saturated by this light source or slightly oversaturated. You can relate that to this diagram at the side. If you think of the horizontal 0 line as just equal saturation to a reference source, it is again showing you that yes, green is sort of being enhanced, or some may say over-enhanced. If you look at any place where the colors are creeping inside the white line, like red and pink, that's telling you the source is tending to undersaturate those compared to a reference source. So again, if you look to the left, you'll see, yes, falling below the 0 degree line, you'll see colors that are warm in tone, like reds or red-orange. The next page in the presentation has a few bits of information that I'm having difficulty reading from this distance. The gamut is, again, being over 100, telling you that there's some colors being sort of extra saturated, if you want to put it that way. This or RF is kind of the new version of color temperature. And what it's actually doing is color rendering index. Whereas the CIE's original color rendering index was based on 8 reference color swatches, this TM30 system is based on 99, so it's kind of more robust in that sense. The sources are being scored across a much broader range of colors, some being more pastel, some being more saturated. So think of the RF as the color rendering index being generated by TM30, but still at the bottom of this you see CIE-RA of 92, telling you what additional ranking would have been. Wherever you see this discrepancy, where the RF is lower than the old CIE color rendering index, it's kind of an indication that perhaps in the past some light sources were gamed to the system and made to enhance test colors, as now they're being scored against a broader menu of colors, and that is impacting the ranking. So we have seen already some cases where perhaps you had a 90 or a 92, and under the TM30 system, you may be seeing an 88 or an 86. Moving ahead, there are also some indexes or indices or metrics added. There's an R skin, which is a reference of how well the source is rendering 3 different skin tones, and it was explained in the DOE's presentation. The 3 skin samples were actually selected because each had components of a broader array of colors that relate to skin tone. And also on this page, they give the obligatory R9 for those very focused on red. That's still presented here as a separate call out. R9 and those higher colors were never officially part of the original CIE, even though they were added as later references. And obviously the R9 is probably one many of you have heard come up in conversation. In this case, you're seeing, again, this bullseye diagram just presented slightly differently. Here you have an array of where the test source is being compared versus the reference source of the same color temperature, showing places where those two might be very much aligned or more in deviation from one another. These are the 99 sample colors, and while it might not come PowerPoint, each of these rectangles is actually subdivided, where the left half is showing you how that color would look under the reference source, and on the right actually looks under this. So again, in a presentation not over the web, you would actually be able to see some subtle differences in some of these cells, or in other cases a very close relationship where they look virtually identical. These bar graphs, I'm going to kind of skip over to get to the super bar graph, which is the 99 colors sense of the variety of colors that are now part of this system. And in a very simple fashion, if you think of having a report card of 0 to 100, which colors are very much being rendered faithfully compared to a reference source, which ones are maybe exhibiting a bit more of a difference. So that information is available, and we have had, particularly from lighting designers, inquiries about its availability. For those wanting to check out photometric information outside of an IES file, there are PDFs available, or the main PDF of the independent test lab. In this case, rather than ITL, it's a UL test, but that information is available for anyone wanting to see it in that format. For those making use of AGI or other software programs, the IES files are broken down into a series of zip files. And there are 8 of them, essentially seeing both drive currents, 350 milliamp with an L call out, 700 milliamp with an M, each repeated in terms of the 4 color temperatures, each at 80 plus CRI. The point here is that once you know what color you're interested in, you would select that. So in this example, we're going to hone in on 350 milliamp 2700 Kelvin, 80 plus CRI, and that zip file then contains all the available lengths. So someone doing an odd row length in a model, if they need to comprise a 21-foot row, rather than having to take one file and mutate its length and adjust the lumens, you can essentially go in here and pick 3 7-footers if that's what's going to give you a 20-foot row in your model, and not have to go through that fussing. So just trying to make their life a little bit easier. For those using Revit, if you select BIM file, there is a zip file containing a Revit object for the S144. It's set up as what they call a face-based object. In the architectural package, placement is done a little bit differently than in the MEP Revit package, so this format kind of makes it more compatible with both. If you find you have a designer who's interested in doing something more sophisticated, if they're really using Revit to do a sophisticated rendering, they need more photometric information, please reach out to us, and Alan Tweed in the applications group is a great resource for dealing with those issues. Finally, the installation files are available not only for installers, but we also have designers who ask questions about what is that exact detail. Perhaps they have an unusual ceiling condition that they need to complete with. So you have a wide variety of sheets available. At the top of the list is, once again, that driver information. So as Paul pointed out, you can link to it from the cut sheet, but someone who might be inclined to look under installation information will find it there as well. Here you see the installation sheet for the cantilever mount, moving on to the pendant mounted and the aircraft cable kits. And then related to all three of those, there's an on-center spacing, which is just documenting for each of those accessories how somebody would plan out the on-center mounting points. And probably the most prevalent use will be the S-mount, and here you see what Paul described, the mounting plate, the hinge-on or hook-on housing, and how that mounts, installs, and is wired. There is a sheet dedicated to driver replacement, or in this case, this is the light engine replacement, followed by the driver replacement. And for those thinking ahead, also a sheet related to disassembly and recycling. Finally, there's a large configurate, which to you as will let you get to a page where you can start to select a product, in this case, obviously S144, make specific selections and view pricing information. This display is as if you're a designer making use of it. So you don't have visibility of the pricing, but you can still make specific selections, select cut sheet, and then generate, in addition to the name, kind of a tailored cut sheet that would, in this area, have specific notes related to 21-foot and 48-foot continuous runs, customer, given that 347 volt isn't shown today on the cut sheet, a requirement for 347 volt. So that can be a nice feature depending on what the designer is doing and what they need to call out. In terms of general performance and life and lumen maintenance and distinguishing between the two and the LEDs, Paul's going to talk about that performance.
Okay, thanks. This is the, Zach brought this up a minute ago, but this is the page for the photometric report. So it's showing the candela values, candela curve. You have your input power as well as THD, things like that. It's a 7-page report. I'm only showing one page right here, but it is used to generate some of the curves that are on our catalog page. This is just showing the 3-foot unit at 700 versus 350, so you get an idea of the difference in light output and scale. That information is then forwarded on to the DOE, the Lighting Facts program, where we apply for our Lighting Facts label. So it's a third-party test that's sent into Lighting Facts. It's not a test that we do ourselves. And you can see from here, we have, on the 3-foot unit, it's 3,680 lumens, 43 watts. So the efficacy is about 85 lumens per watt. The color accuracy was 83 by scale, not 30 scale.
Yes.
And then the color temperature is 3497, so that's our 3,500 nominal Kelvin unit. Now, the lumen maintenance that's shown here is saying that at 50,000 hours, you'll 95% of your light output, and that is based on the TM21 projection. So I'll go into a little bit more detail on that. The TM21 uses data from the manufacturer, which is the LM80 data, which is a test that the manufacturers do for the LEDs themselves. They will test it at 55 Celsius, 85 Celsius, and then they pick a third temperature. Typically, it's around 105 for most manufacturers, and they will do it at several different drive currents. So they have a large group of LEDs that they measure every 1,000 hours. They will measure the light output, the forward voltage, and the color. And this is kept over 6,000 hours. In this case, it's actually done over 10,000 hours. This is the Chia mid-power that's used in this product. This is a test that was done at 150 milliamp. Even though we're saying 350 and 700 milliamp, that is the drive current coming out of the driver, but what's actually running through the LED, because of the way it's circuited, we're running at about 116 milliamps. So this is what it gets correlated to. So you can see the light output, the lumen values are very steady over 10,000 hours. You probably won't find any LM80 data reports that go beyond 10,000 hours because it's a very expensive test for the manufacturers to do. And then by 10,000 hours, they're probably on to the next chip anyway. But that's important when you correlate it inside TM21. So the next step is the ISTMT, which stands for In Situ Measurement Test. Is taking our fixture, the complete fixture, and installing it and measuring the temperatures, let it heat up over 4 to 6 hours, let it heat up, and then they'll measure the hottest LED as well as the driver. And in this case, we had the hottest LED was 49 degrees. Put it into the Energy Star TM21 calculator. It's a spreadsheet where you enter all the LM80 data that I just showed, different color temperatures. And then we also enter in the temperature of our LEDs, and it will calculate, in this case, we've asked for not L70, but L90, which is how long will it take to get to 90%. And it will calculate 115,000 hours, but its reported value is greater than 60,000 hours. And the difference is you really should only report no more than 6 times your actual tested time. So if they have 10,000 hours of real test data, you project beyond 6. They have since removed the calculated hours because it had been grossly misused in the industry. So if you download the latest version of the Energy Star spreadsheet, you won't even see it calculated anymore. The other line is, this is what's on the lighting facts label. The time at which to estimate lumen maintenance, 50,000 hours, and it will tell you that it's at 95% maintained light output. So it's 2 ways of looking at the same data. One of them is how much light will you have at 50,000, and the other one is when do I get to 90% light output? And it's greater than 60,000 hours. All right, now Zach's going to talk about some applications for the S144.
Yeah, we're getting near half hour here, but just briefly to talk about uses. We obviously don't have a lot of photography of S144 since we're announcing the product today. However, it's probably not a surprise to say we envision it being used where the fluorescent F144 had traditionally gone. And one of the classic examples, those of you who have had our case study books over the years, the pedestrian corridor at Nashville Airport was a good example of where the F144 fits so naturally. They had an detail that had supported MR16 trap. They were looking for a linear system that would light the walls evenly, even though the existing drywall would only let the fixtures come out 22 inches from the wall. And they wanted something that could surface mount and through wire easily because they didn't want to interrupt or poke into the existing drywall more than they had to. So naturally, again, a through wired surface mounted product really fit that situation. And again, the S144 would do the same now. We also envision it going into classrooms where you have whiteboard conditions, pin-up boards, teaching walls, things of that nature, and sometimes conditions where you don't have a lot of plenum depth to play with, and or grids that aren't always orthogonal to the wall. So again, having that surface mounted through wired product makes life much easier. In office environments, we had seen it in the past used not necessarily for fine art displays, but corporate art, prints hung on a wall. The image you see on the right is a law firm's office where they had perimeter shelving in several areas and chose to do that with the 144. And also in retail, while two of these three images are just cell phone scout shots, we had it, the F144 used as a menu board light by some counts. The image you see at the center is a little bit similar to that. It's actually an open ceiling grid, painted black, obviously with some troffers dropped in. But parallel to that back wall, there was an F144 row, painted black, with a lens used over the deli counter, both to light the backdrop wall and to light the menu. And in the same different areas of the same store, they actually used cable-mounted runs of the product to light various special graphics that were suspended throughout the store. Everything you've seen up to this point, in terms of cut sheets, the data sheets, all the presentation has been wall washing. Nevertheless, we have already been approached by people who knew this was coming about using it to light ceilings. And that was something we experienced with the F144. Here you see an example of the fluorescent product used on two sides of an entry to a health clinic. So these things do come up. I would say, however, keep in mind that wall mounted, your visibility of the aperture of the fixture and any source brightness is different than when it's on a ceiling with its back to you and it's aimed at a wall. So, to expand on that, certainly because of its projection under 3 inches, there's a tendency to think of it in ADA mounting applications. And one that comes up frequently is, can this be used in a corridor? So in a very crude model here, what you see is a 6-foot wide corridor with an 8'6" ceiling and a row of S144s mounted at 6'6" above the floor. And in this kind of narrow space with a very well-defined circulation flow where you're not apt to look directly head into the fixture, that's quite doable. Keep in mind, however, corridors often get interrupted by doorways and cross corridors, so that can start to impact the overall coverage on the ceiling. If you try and go above those doors, you're naturally reducing your setback distance, which has some impact on ceiling coverage. But it is an approach that we're asked about sometimes. Keep in mind, though, corridors hit up as you expand out into a wider zone like a reception area. You now have a much lower and more distant sightline potential for a head-on view of the fixture. So we would suggest if you have a client, a designer, an end user who's interested, certainly show them the sample, and it's a great way just to get them to experience at either the higher or lower drive current what the fixture feels like and looks like. Just to say that it doesn't necessarily mean you couldn't use this wall mounted in a wider space. Here's something that came in recently. It's a recreational pool. The mounting height is about 13 feet. So the thought here was the fixtures are at such a height, you really have to start to look at them, and the space is just so large, it's not really the most prominent element. We may very well choose to create a second cut sheet that illustrates this as, photographed, oriented as it would be to light the ceiling. But in the meantime, if you have someone who is interested and you show them a sample, we have a generic submittal drawing in black and white we can provide to you. And as you see on the right, we could easily customize that with a project name and specific selections if you have a project that's more imminent. Finally, on the subject of applications, because we're already 3 minutes over, surprisingly, the products who have come out that are linear LED in the past, we were frequently saying the 350 milliamp version acts a lot like our traditional T5, and the 700 milliamp acts a lot like T5HO. Things have shifted a little bit here. I'm doing some simplified math here of whether the fluorescent version was lensed or baffled, because you couldn't do both together as you can now with the LED. But the 28-watt T5 was around 1,450 delivered lumens by the time you took the lamp lumens multiplied by the fixture efficiency. The T5HO, 2,500 lumens. With the S144, the 3 milliamp version at 20 watts is essentially the equivalent of a T5HO now. And if you went with the 700 mil, it's actually well beyond, it's nearly twice a T5HO. Now that's not to say there might not be a super graphic or an application where you need that much light, but it does create a different relationship to Paul's earlier point. If you really have a situation where you think that lower T5 kind of output would have been appropriate, that's a situation where we may make use of the programmable drivers just to set this at a lower wattage use and a lower light output if you have that need.
Okay. All right, now that pretty much covers it for the linear S144, and now I'm just coming to the website near you. We will be having a smaller version, a point source version of the S144. This will use high power LED, and it will be in 3 different lengths. There'll be an 8-inch, 16-inch, and a 21-inch. This will be used with several more options as far as the color temperature and CRI, because it is using the high power LEDs. But this is, again, it's the same small, low profile, under 3-inch profile, and it's going to be available with in the 3 sizes, the 2 drive currents, but again, programmable drivers will let you tailor to a specific lumens per watt or to a delivered lumen value. So look for that in the coming weeks. We're still wrapping up some of the photometric testing, but it should be coming very soon. And we'll turn the video back on. And
yeah, just before we do that, if you think of any questions afterwards, you can certainly feel free to ask for us, or feel free to email us. That's pford@thelightingquotient.com or Zach, Z-A-C-H, @thelightingquotient.com. We do, if you can bear with us just a couple more minutes, we do have a few physical props. So as Paul was saying, switch, do that. Or okay. Have I already done it?
So I'm going to turn the video on, and we'll be able to show you some of the sample. As far as the small fixture that I just mentioned, here's a sample of the unit with a baffle. It's the 8-inch unit. It's about 20 watts at high power. As you can see, the baffle actually is a true accessory, so it can be removed. The lens hinges open and it shuts. To see a better view of what the extrusions look like, a cross section of the extrusions, you can see the light engine inside. That is serviceable in the linear unit. It's serviceable in 1-foot increments. In this unit, it's pretty much a 1-for-1. Now, you might ask yourself, why didn't you make it smaller? There are drivers such as the Eldo LED that have to fit in there, which take up all the space. So it is, having an integral driver and through wiring for the linear is a great option. You can also see the hinge here, so this would be mounted in it. If you want to see what the light engine itself looks like, this is the unit with the mid-power. So these are serviceable in 1-foot increments. Zach has the 3-foot sample that just went out recently.
Yeah, there will be a linear sample in the 3-foot length. What you're seeing here is the lens only. The clear lens actually has a secondary diffusion film just inboard to give it a more uniform look over the aperture. Looking at the top surface mounting holes and the direct
conduit feed right through the knockout.
Through the knockout. And there are 2 extruded grooves which are used to mate with some of these mounting accessories. The sample kit also includes a second hinged lens with the baffle. And one subtle point that you order up front lens and baffle, that secondary diffusion film goes from being just inside of the lens to being just inside of the baffle. So in that sense, the baffle stays outboard of the light-producing elements. And the sample kit also comes with an ELV dimmer, again, so you can demonstrate everything from that very high light output to more moderate levels, depending on the application. On the QA, there are 2 questions. I'll just try to pull these up quickly and see. When will 347 volt be available?
It's actually available now, so and specify. We'll update the cut sheet and get that up in the next, around the same time we wrap up the point source. But it is available now in the linear, so you can't specify.
And then the second question is on the aircraft cable mount, what keeps it level side to side? It borrows a detail we've used in some past fluorescent products where we're actually doing sort of like a triangulated saddle. And if you go to the website and pull up that installation sheet, you have the main grip lock kit that drops. and there's a fitting at the bottom of that, and you literally use the bottom bracket and that triangular saddle to get it balanced. And then it becomes a very simple process to repeat that. But it's that sort of triangle that helps level the element.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it is off center weight this way, so you will see a slightly different angle on the cable, but it's a short cable, so it's only visible from the end. But the set screw on the bottom really grabs it and keeps that. You can level it and sock down the set screw and keep it level.
So again, any other questions, feel free to call us or email us, and we thank you for staying on board a few extra minutes for the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.